Bonus pod here. Welcome, everybody, on Fantasy Football Today. Looks like Jonathan Taylor is going to miss some time. He is expected to start the season on the PUP list, which means at least 4 games that he will be missing, and he's still with the Indianapolis Colts. I'm Adam Azer with Jamie Eisenberg, and what is your reaction to this, Jamie? Let's start with Jonathan Taylor. We were thinking maybe late round 2, early round 3. Now that he's going to start out on PUP, he's going to miss a juicy matchup with the Texans in week 2, by the way. At least 4 games. When are we drafting Jonathan Taylor?
I think, Adam, at this point, you have to treat him almost like a better version of Alvin Kamara, where you're missing that much time. So, I don't know, man. It's like round 4, round 5.
You have to even wonder what he's going to be when he comes back. And we don't know when he's going to come back, because if he's really on the PUP list, and this ankle injury is lingering, that's a little scary, isn't it?
Well, again, how much of this is posturing and how much of this is he's actually hurt? Because
on the PUP list, I feel like he's got to be hurt. But you're right. Like I don't know the ins and outs.
He's definitely dealing with something, So the ankle is probably not 100%, but. Oh boy!
Hey, let's get a YouTube poll. Let's see let's start.
I would say at this point, so when we look at the tiers of running backs, he's behind clearly the guys that he was in the range of, I'll say past the Jacobs Henry group. So behind Mixon, behind Gibbs, behind Stevenson, behind Etienne, behind Pierce, behind Aaron Jones. You're getting now into behind Dobbins. You're getting now into Madison, Connor, Sanders range. And so when you start to think like big picture, who's better? I think those guys are at this point, right?
Madison, Connor, who?
Miles Sanders.
I mean, I definitely take Sanders. Madison and Connor, you just don't know if they're any good at this point. So if you
we're getting to like running back 20.
I know. I think Breece Hall is probably the big comparison here, right? Because you're expecting Breece Hall to have the bigger impact in the second half of the season, so you're hoping for from Taylor. I would take Sanders over Taylor. I don't think I'd take Madison or Connor. But
let me ask you this, because I think I have him right like 20.
I know where you're going.
Ken Walker or Jonathan Taylor?
I think I think Taylor. But it's really risky. I mean, I could see this just being a terrible season for Jonathan Taylor, and who knows when he's coming back. And
well, didn't Schefter tweet that they could tag him again?
He's not even tagged.
Oh, I'm sorry, they could tag him next year.
Yeah, I'm sure they can. Why wouldn't they be able to? Yeah. Right. It's contentious right now, and you know what? Honestly, it sounds like I'm hemming and hawing, but I really don't know. I think it's really hard to know how to draft him. I guess I'd say Taylor, in round 5 is where I'm thinking, after Sanders, before the running backs that I feel like are just going to have a lot of work but aren't very good. That's Connor and Madison. I like those guys, don't get me wrong, but he is still Jonathan Taylor at the end of the day.
Well, I mean, he's still Jonathan Taylor, but he's going to have a little bit of a ramp up period. He's going to have some acclimation with a new quarterback that he's never been on the field with, and Anthony Richardson. And by the way, he's never played with a running quarterback. I mean, he started his career was his rookie year with Phillip Rivers? Wentz. He went Wentz. He did go Rivers, right? Rivers, Wentz, right?
Whatever it is. That was the order. Rivers, Wentz, Ryan.
Yeah. So this is year 4 for him. So he's never had a running quarterback. Wentz was the closest to that. I mean, the earliest for me would be round 4. The earliest. I think you're right. Breece Hall is the better comp.
So, okay. How about Ken Walker, Breece Hall, James Conner, Alexander Madison?
I would take all those guys over Taylor right now.
Wow. Okay.
And you know how I feel about Breece Hall. I'd probably take Breece Hall over him. I don't think he'll be a top 24 running back for me.
I think I feel the same way now that I'm thinking about it. It's such a, here's the thing. How important is that round 5 pick? Right? I mean, are these league winners we're talking about? They might be, especially because Dobbins is going round 5. I know how much you love him. I think that's what you have to kind of ask yourself is, that's why I like Ken Walker. I still think he has major upside.
Yep.
What kind of player are you drafting? Are you drafting a league winner, or are you drafting a starter? Because if you think you're just drafting a starter, a worthwhile starter, then maybe you take a shot at Jonathan Taylor.
Well, let's put it this way. If you are not taking a quarterback or tight end in the first 5 rounds, so you go with your first 4 picks in a 3-receiver league, whether it's 2 receivers in a flex or 3 receivers PPR, you're probably going to go 3. Let's say you go 3 receivers and a running back. So a modified hero RB approach, because we're going to make the decision in round 5. So now you're in round 5 and you're staring at Trevor Lawrence, right? That's where his ADP is, I think.
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence, Darren Waller. And the running backs that we're talking about here are, I mean, I guess Dobbins is still there in this scenario. But I mean, we say that though, but I think Breece Hall's ADP is still ahead of Dobbins. So I think that's the range. This is the range.
All right. So first of all, if you have a 2 running back, 2 receiver, 1 flex league, it's easier to take Taylor. If you have to start 3 receivers and you got to build your lineup a little bit more, and you still have to start the flex, it's a little bit harder to.
I have a draft tonight where I have the first pick. I'm taking Jefferson, obviously. I'm hoping for it's 2 receivers, 2 running backs in the flex. I would have no problem taking 3 receivers. I like that strategy. But if I don't take 3 receivers, let's say I decide to go a different route and I go 1 receiver, 1 running back, I come back on the 4-5 turn, that's where I would consider Taylor.
Yeah. I was going to say that feels like a little early based on what we were just saying. So if you have the first pick, you're probably not getting Taylor. I feel like he's going to end up going, after your 5th pick and before your 6th pick. But that's winning the poll results right now is round 2, round 3, round 4, round 5 or later. Round 5 or later is 70%. I don't know if you want to update it, Schaefer, to start at round 4, round 5, round 6, round 7 or later. I'd be curious to see what the results of that poll would be.
Yeah, it's like the more I think about it, round 5 at the earliest. I'm like keep backtracking here. It's like, I know we sound a little wishy-washy. I apologize, but it's like we're processing this as it's happening.
Exactly. So if we talk this out, right? Like if it's especially if it's two running back, 2 receiver flex league. Okay, let's say you start your team with a stud receiver and a stud running back. And let's say you go receiver in round 2, and let's say you take Justin Fields in round 4. So you've got Fields, Barkley, Garrett Wilson, and Calvin Ridley. Okay, that's your team right now, which is a terrific start. Now you're up in round 5, and you probably have like the 8th, 9th, 10th pick in the draft. Can you take Taylor there? That would give you Fields, Barkley, Taylor, Ridley, and who did I say in round 2? Garrett Wilson?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, your team's pretty loaded at that point. You're not going to be great at tight end unless maybe in the next round you could even take Kyle Pitts or Darren Waller or Goddard, based on ADP. And then in round 7, you might be able to get a Cam Akers or a Rashad White or DeAndre Swift if you want to go that route. If you like Gibson or Brian Robinson or A.J. Dillon, if you think Samaje Perine or Jalen Warren, I think that you could pull this off. I do think you can pull this off by taking Taylor in round 5 if you really crush it with your first 4 picks and you feel great about your team. What do you think?
I mean, you certainly could. It's just a matter of when does he come back and what kind of player are you getting? It's like I'm looking at the chat right here. Like I think somebody mentioned Montgomery. Like,
right?
How do you justify like Taylor over David Montgomery? Like I'm thinking how I feel about Javonte Williams, and I'm concerned about him. Let's not forget, Taylor's still going to be on a bad offense. The lack of touchdowns may not be there. The lack of receptions may not be there too. So we were counting on him to be him and sort of overcome some of these things. Now, if he's not him.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I mean, if you could tell me we were getting,
I think I'm just out.
I'll update you on the poll so far. The new poll we have 105, 106 votes. Round 4, 14%. Round 5, 24%. Round 6, 26%. Round 7 or later, 36%. All right, that's interesting. Now, what about the other running backs?
I was just about to say, they have Zach Moss, who's dealing with a broken arm. I don't know what his status is. I didn't see anything updated as of 4:00.
So, but what I looked at his player page, and he had surgery maybe August 1st, and the timeline was 6 weeks. So,
okay.
So they have Moss, who at the last year when Taylor got hurt in the Minnesota game, Moss and Deion Jackson split carries pretty evenly in that game, and then they just went all out on Zach Moss.
Yeah.
But he barely caught passes. He caught 4 balls in 4 games at the end of the season.
Well,
Jackson had 4 games last year with 4 more catches. In fact, he had 2 games with 8 or more catches. So,
well, I think again, you're looking at the at the time a more quarterback friendly offense, more running back friendly offense from
yes.
a passing standpoint.
Yeah.
Now you have Shane Steichen, who we know didn't really throw the ball. Their offense didn't throw the ball in Philadelphia. Lowest targets to running backs in that system. And with Anthony Richardson, you just don't expect it. So if they stay with what they are right now, I would take a late round flyer on basically all 3 guys, depending on how deep your league is. Deion Jackson would be my first one, then probably Evan Hull, and then probably Zach Moss, just because of health. But don't forget, they entertain Kareem Hunt. And if they feel like Jonathan Taylor is not going to be a significant contributor for them at all, or at least in the beginning part of the season, that may be a transaction that we hear after week 1. And so just take that into account. So your best bet is to find the right landing spot for Jonathan Taylor in your draft, wherever you're willing to take the chance on him. And that's probably the only Colts running back I would draft. And then what I would do is I would look to be aggressive on waivers. Remember, once you draft, depending on you have an IR spot, you can stash Taylor on an IR spot. You can make a transaction following that, and then you could try and pick up one of these guys.
They got the Jaguars and the Texans to start the season. So the Texans have just year after year been an absolute sieve against the run. They are terrible. And in fact, in week 18, Zach Moss had 18 carries, 114 yards, and a touchdown against the Texans. Unfortunately, he didn't win you weeks 15, 16, or 17, but he won you week 18 if you played. Jacksonville was 20th against running backs last year. I don't think they've made major upgrades to their run defense, but I could be wrong. I haven't done my week 1 research yet. But I actually, you know what, Jamie, I think I might take a shot on Kareem Hunt. And look, maybe it's Fournette or something, but I think I'd take a shot on Kareem Hunt before those guys. Would you?
In your dynasty league, it was my last pick, and it was right at the time of the news that happened when he left New Orleans, Kareem Hunt did, and went to visit Indianapolis. And I was like, oh, what am I going to get in this round? It was 27, 20, 24, whatever it is.
3 yeah.
So I was like, yeah, I'll take a flyer on that. So yeah, I think those are the type of moves you want to make at this point. But man, it's just hard to say one of these guys stands out, because the rushing production is going to come from the quarterback.
Right. You're not getting a high end player here. So speaking of the quarterback, how does this change your valuation, if at all, of Anthony Richardson and let's say Michael Pittman as well?
It doesn't really. I mean, I've been ranking it as if he was gone for Taylor, that they were going to trade him. He's going to be the offense. He's going to run the ball. He's going to, have it's basically like if you look at Justin Fields from a year ago, he's going to have to do so much.
Yeah. They could still trade him, by the way. Like, they had a self-imposed deadline of 4 p.m. on Tuesday because that's when roster cutdown was. But he could still, I don't see any reason why he couldn't be traded. So just to throw that out there, maybe now we know why he wasn't traded. Teams didn't want to take a shot maybe on a guy who was going to be on PUP. So I think that's basically it. I mean, Michael Pittman, does he benefit?
No change. I will say this, the regret I have over the last several days of doing quite a few drafts is passing on the Dolphins running backs, because that was the biggest concern, was that he was going to Miami and how one of those guys, if not both, would be irrelevant, completely irrelevant, not just handcuff or anything, like just completely irrelevant. And I did a radio show earlier today, and the question was, what happened to the the Dolphins guys, and there was still a chance maybe one of those guys would get sent back to Indianapolis as part of a package. So it was worth holding on to it. But yeah, the winners coming out of this, I think, are Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert. And if you drafted them at an even bigger discount over the weekend because of the potential of Miami acquiring Jonathan Taylor, you're pretty happy about that.
Yeah, and 2 guys I drafted yesterday in our podcast league draft, 14 teams, Jeff Wilson and Jerry Jeudy, who's not going on short-term IR, baby. Would you take Jerry Jeudy or Jonathan Taylor? Who's going to be higher in your overall rankings?
Wow. Probably Jeudy. Like I said, as we're talking this out, I just feel like I'm out. I'm out, Jerry.
Out. Oh, man. I'm getting some white men can't jump vibes right now. He's out. He is out. And then I won't say the next line. Anyway, thanks for listening and watching, everybody. Tomorrow's Draftathon. Woohoo! And we'll get Heath. Oh, I'm going to make fun of Heath so bad tomorrow morning. because if you watch the CBS Sports Network,
I want to look. Let me see. We
He
did.
just
Who took in the podcast league was Heath, right?
yeah, he has him in the podcast league. He has him in the Dynasty League.
So we did a draft for Draftathon. You unfortunately not in this draft, but it's a lot of the analysts that are going to be on the show.
Right. I wouldn't say unfortunately. But yeah.
That's why I didn't bother asking you. Let's see where he went in that draft. So he went in round two. Can you guess?
He went to Heath?
No, the other one.
Chris?
Dave.
Oh, man. Round 2. All right.
Dave drafted a lot of Taylor recently.
I'm sorry. Look.
Do you have any Jonathan Taylor shares?
No, 0.
I've done 20 drafts so far. No, I'm sorry. 17 drafts so far. 0 Jonathan Taylor.
I haven't looked at all of them, but it's possible Scott Fishbowl like 5 months ago, it feels like, but I don't think so. So I'm going to say no. Wow. Congratulations, Dave. But hey, look, it's not over. Some guys, some guys pay off in the end. That's what we're hoping for Jonathan.
Yeah, obviously.
And we'll see if we change our mind tomorrow morning, because sometimes a little bit of distance helps, and we'll keep thinking about it. So we'll update you tomorrow morning, and we'll have another podcast for you then, and we'll talk to you later on Fantasy Football Today.